Mswatu inkosi ithula akayithathe akahambe nayo akayithathe yadenza bakewone akayithathe
All right, good morning. It's 6 a.m. Central African Time. You're watching Kusile Breakfast Show here on Eswatini TV. Sibugo Sema Swati. A bit of a chilly weather here in the Highveld. We are waking up with some rain showers this morning. And of course, nothing too new. We did experience a pouring weather condition in the evening of yesterday. We certainly hope that everyone was marked safe, because we are learning that in some parts of the country it was pretty hectic. It wasn't just the rain pouring down, but it came with a very, very, very heavy wind. So we are hoping that indeed everybody was marked safe. We start this morning yet again feeling blessed and feeling grateful, but also feeling optimistic about what this day and the rest of the week is going to look like. And of course, it is the 24th of March. We are hitting the home stretch of this very month, which is the month of March. And I'm certain this is the last Tuesday, or the second last Tuesday of the month. Good morning again. We are going to have ourselves a very important program yet again. Per usual, we are going to look at the tourism sector with Vusi Nomen Lamin, who is the Chief Executive of the Eswatini Tourism Authority. We just really want to understand how they are sustaining tourism amid shifting global as well as travel patterns. It is indeed something that has culminated over some of the tourism statistics that they have recently released, as well as some of the concerns that are there, but also the celebrations that are there in terms of the numbers, as well as some of the things to look up to. And I suppose some of the most recent ones are, of course, the pronouncements around the ICC official opening, which we should be experiencing really, really soon, but also this new hotel that you will learn about this morning on the program in detail, Shane Hotel, which was officially launched and opened yesterday, really, by His Majesty King Mswati III, with which he named Insulutane. But anyway, going ahead with the program, we do have our local news in English and in Siswati, but also a little peek in terms of what is happening internationally when it comes to current affairs. But as per usual, we begin our program by looking at some of the top stories in our major newspapers. All right, let's begin with the Observer, the Eswatini Observer. We ought to start with the front page, and there we are, just fixed it quickly. The top story, King unveils Shane Royal Hotel and commissions shopping mall. His Majesty King Mswati III, on that photo, turning the sword to mark the construction of a new shopping complex at Shane yesterday. This was during the official opening of the Nsulutane properties under the Inyatsi Group. On your right, you see the Shane Hotel, which the King officially opened and has created 1,000 jobs. Another top story, illegal gambling crackdown. 50 more arrested. Arrests bring number of foreigners apprehended in connection with illegal gambling to over 200 now. Those are your top two stories in your front page. Now we shift and we turn this publication into the back end, where we have our sports headlines. Referees under fire. The Eswatini Football Association cracks whip on referees. EFA summons 5 Premier League officials following string of high-profile errors. Crackdown follows calls from Parliament for a formal investigation. Accused officials face potential bans, demotion, and mandatory retraining if found guilty. In other stories, 8 medals for Team Eswatini. That story speaks to Team Eswatini that has returned with an impressive haul of 8 medals, claiming 2 gold, 3 silver, and 3 bronze at the Maseru International Meat Challenger. The last story, Sihlangu Stars get Rulani and launch inspiration. National team Sihlangu encountered South African coach Rulani Mukwena and midfielder Temingosi Lodge number 10 upon arrival in Morocco ahead of their 2027 Africa Cup of Nations preliminary round qualifier, a game that will be against Eritrea. Let's look at the Eswatini Daily News now. In our front page, we have the top story again. 200 million Emalangeni in Sulutane property development opens as His Majesty King Mswati III applauds tourism growth at Hlane. Another story, United Nations Development Program strengthens staff capacity through the DEI and SOGIESC training. The other 2 stories speak to poultry push gains ground as farmers pack egg production training, and gifted Kosi returns to India with sights on global domination. Sports news from the Eswatini Daily. Sheffield United start to play against Sihlangu, while a 26-man Eritrea squad is expected in Morocco ahead of Wednesday's game. Only less than 15 players landed in Casablanca on Saturday. Big guns cruise in volleyball Muller Sports Series League, and Manchester United are eyeing Arsenal's Lewis Skelly. Those are top stories in our major newspapers this morning, the 24th of March on a Tuesday. We'll go for a net break now. I'll be back with our news in vernacular.
Those that are in pain must forget all the problems they have. Because the things of the earth have got no answer. But the answer that we have is all morning. When I'm preaching here, I'm preaching to myself. I receive the Holy Spirit.
I declare that a turnaround is coming my way.
Turnaround is coming in my life.
Swatla solo ni bukela Eswatini TV Kusile breakfast show sitaqala ngana tindzaba tetfu tesiswati silo semhlaba sithi intuthuko ayisilo lifa kodwa ke kumele iqale ezingeni leliphansi bese iyakhula iba imphumelelo. Ngonyama beyiphefumula ngesikhathi ivula ngekwemthetho lihotela eHlane kanti ke imbube emhlaba iphindze yahlaba lisoyi lapho ke kutawukwakhiwa khona luchungechunge lwetitolo kanye neligalaji lapelitoli tutane naleli hotela.
Silo semhlaba sinyathele lihotela eHlane lapho sifike semukelwa khona abaphathi balolu hotela. Lo msebenzi ubusiswe nakuba khona kwendlovukazi Mhlekazi. Emakhosi abesingethwe ngemakhosikazi esilo, sigodlo, ndvunankulu, tindvuna tembuso nemabandla ekweluleka. Eminyakeni lengcile silo semhlaba siniketa sive saseHlane nelive lonke jikelele insaya yekuthuthukisa indzawo yaseHlane. Imithelela yayo insayensi iyabonakala njengoba intuthuko seyivele icalile. Ihlane Hotel le yakhiwe yiNyathi Group Holdings inetindlu letibheka ukuthi tilalishe tivakashi letingetuluko likhulu. Leli hotela lakhiwe thutane ne-airport yelive kanye nathutane nesigodlo lapho kubanjwa khona umkhosi webukano lesewakha ngativakashi letibuya etinhlangothini letehlukene temhlaba. Kungako libheka ukuthi lifaka isandla ekuthuthukiseni luhlangothi lwetekuvakasha. Leli hotela libite emalangeni lalinganiselwa etikithini letingama200. Imbube emhlaba ikhonjiswe leli hotela kabanti ukuthi licuketheni ngekhathi njengoba liubambisile umgomo welive wekubalelwa kumavela athuthukile kanye nembono wengwenyama wekusebenzisa umkhono wetekuvakasha kufukula umnotho welive. Lesakhiwo sinetindlu letinge42 ligumbile kubambela imihlangano lelithwala abantu labalikhulu kanye naletinye tinhlangothi. Ingwenyama ibese ivakashela indzawo lapho kutawusukunyiswa luchungechunge lwetitolo kanye neligalaji laphethiloli thutane nalo leli hotela. Lesakhiwo sitawuba netitolo letehlukene letifaka ekhatsi tekudla nendzawo yekupaka timotolo nalokunye lokunenge lokufaka ekhatsi i-golf course. Lizinyane umvanenkosi Mcwasho lichazele ingwenyama kabanti ngalomsebenzi. Kule ndzawo ingwenyama ihlabelisoyi lapho kutawusukunyiswa khona lomsebenzi. Umhlaba lapho kutawusukunyiswa khona lomsebenzi ungu-7,200 square meters. Sesiphefumulela umhlaba silo semhlaba sigcizelele ngebumcoka bekuthi uma inkosi imemetile wonke umele atithinthithe asukume athingwe.
Indzawo development vele usuka endzaweni lenganalutho lengakadevelopi ngoba na udevelopa akusiko ukudevelopa kufika ukuthi awu ngitfolele sengendelwa ubaba emkhulu bese uthi i-development leyo ngoba lokho kuyinto lo inheriti kepha nabo ususa i-development phansi uyisuse nje ukuthi beka ulihlanze la njoba lapha nje umsebenzi webugano sivele sibonakele sitile kutowusebenta kutowusekela lo mkhosi besisikhulu kabi bantu labanyenti kufika la esigodlweni bekuthatha leqi kubonakale ukuthi labanyenti nje bebangibikela bathi hey i-traffic beyisuka le kuyashiwa ukuthi i-traffic beyithatha lapha kuda lapha kubo 3 hours kusuka nje kuda la esigodlweni. Uyabona ke ukuthi ke lokho kuyinkhomba ukuthi live liyakhula.
Ingwenyama ikhuthate wonke ukuthi asukume abukede ukuthi angendani abambe ngakuphi kufaka isandla ekuthuthukeni kwendzawo yasehlane.
Umsebenzi ujabulise kakhulu muhle kakhulu sithumisa lonke lelibandla lelisebenzile lapha futhi lisebenta ngemoya lomuhle wekubambisana nangemoya ukuthi konke lesikwendako nasingemaswati nakungathi yonke le profit isherishwe lapha Eswatini njengoba nesive lebesebenta lapha besivele sicashwe khona lapha emimangweni khona la elibonjeni ukuthi ngisona lesitawusebenta lapha futhi nekuya embili kubuketwe kona leso sigaba leso kubonakale ukuthi kuyabanjiswana kuthi ke awu nemisebenzi la ngekhathi nje bangibikele ukuthi konke lesingathi ngu90% lokusebentile kuvele kwakhiwe la Eswatini akukalandwa ngaphandle ebekunene.
Silo semhlaba sibe sesiniketa leli hotela ligama lelisha.
Njoba lo msebenzi umkhulu beNyathi Group bacelile ke ukuthi lo msebenzi wonke ufaka ekhathi kungasasilo lelo hotela lalamanye lalamanye imisebenzi lesetawufika bacela ligama ke nini bekunene kusho ukuthi leligama ngibuke njoba nembala nakutalwa umntwana lomusha uvele bese uphuwa ligama leatakwati ukuthi ke so awusale asebenta ngalo lendzawo nini bekunene kuthi ke lapha njengoba leli hotela lelihle linjena kuthi ke ngibuke ligama ngabona ukuthi cha ligama lengidala lipha lona leli hotela kutaba iSultani property hotel bekunene.
Umhlonishwa Ndvunankhulu Russell Miso Dlamini ukubeke ngalokusobala ukuthi banguhulumende wembube bayawuconza umbono wengwenyama bekubeka live esigabeni semave lathuthukile nemgomo wangwe.
Umbono wangwe ungakosila lamhlanje. Ingwenyama isibeke liqala. Thina singumhulumende kwekuthi lokho lekukhulumako kuthi asisebenzele ukuthi sifike ku first world sisebenze ngangwe ku possible ngoba akusisikhathi singakanani wena waphakathi lo msebenzi bokuqala kungathi angeke uphele lamhla sawuphelile.
Lo khulumele inkampani yakanyathi Thokozani Nkambule uvetile ukuthi ngalomsebenzi eMaswati lalinganiselwa enkulungwaneni akhonile ukuthola umsebenzi kude ayisesandla emlonyeni.
Utsinze timpilo incumbi lokufaka ekhathi bantfu bakulendzawo lababe employed la sicashe close to 1000 people labanye direct labanye from subcontractors.
Imbube emhlaba ekubeni ivulele lihotela ibese iyaveta ukuthi ne-convention center yelihotela lelikhulu eveni lesezulwini itawuvulwa kule nyanga lesiya kiyo. Silo siphindze futhi sakubeka ngalokusobala ukuthi kumele kubuketwe tindlela tokwakhiwa kwetimali tekwakha ihotela lelikhulu kude kuthuthuke lihlangothi lwetekuvakasha. Edintsabeni kubika Pholile Maziya Anathabiso Dlamini ehlane.
Yethula sanvulelo sekusebenta kwelitiko layo kulesigaba sekucala seminyaka indvuna yelitiko letemtsetfo nemtsetfosisekelo umvane Nkosi Simelane ithi-ke lelitiko liyatichenya ngemisebenti leliwentile wekuphasiswa kwemtsetfo lobukeke ukuthi lonke eliswati lokufaka ekhatsi nalabampofu bakhona kumeleleka etindzabeni tetemtsetfo. Lakhona ivete khona ukuthi lokhu kuyintfo live lelabophelela kuyo etinhlangenweni letifaka ekhatsi yakamhlabuhlangene i-United Nations kanye naleyo yebunye bemave e-Africa i-African Union. Lokhu-ke tinhlangano letihambisa phambili kuvikelwa kwemalungelo ebantfu. Umhlonishwa uchaza kabanti ngemisebenti lemihle labayendile kanye-ke naletinye tetingcinamba labahlangabetene nato basasebenta.
Ema-bills lesesiwendile siyakhumbula illegal aid bill seyivele siyabakhona lelapha kubukwe ukuthi kusitakale sive kutemtsetfo nakhona kwedlulele khona ekumelelekeni. Siphinze njalo sibe nawo umtsetfo ilo reform lesendlula etindlini totimbili teparlamente lapha kawubukwa khona imitsetfo njengoba semdzala kangaka ihlungwe kube njeya yona-ke seyaba kangwane. Siphinze sibe nayo umtsetfo weCommission yetemalungelo ngiyetfule namhlanje lapha endlini nangale sesaye 2 kube sekuba ne-leadership code of conduct lapho khona kubukwe khona kutiphatsa kwebantu njengoba sekwagangwa nje kunjena corruption bantu batiphethe akunamtsetfo lobanjana ngilotentela mathanza umtsetfo-ke lobuke loku lokusho ukuthi utawugcina ufikile ngalapha bosophela ngale timbuku sesikulo-ke lihhovisi lelisita bona labaswele labanzinzile kwekuthi nobe ngabe kusetinkantolo labo bantu bebantu benkosi bawumelele baphenze basitakala nalo lonke lisito lwembuto labayidzinga impendulo tako likhona lehhovisi livele lente njalo kulo mnyaka nje leluleke 154 webantu etindzabeni temhlaba etindzabeni tekusebenta endzabeni temindeni sive siyajabula kakhulu ngalelihhovisi kukhona kupoti
Timphunga titfumise imisebenti lemihle lesendiwe litiko letemtsetfo nemtsetfosisekelo lakhona tiphindze taligudluta khona lelitiko etinhlangotsini lelisalela kuto emuva kute-ke litawukhona kubamba lizinga lemhlaba. Timphunga tikusho lokhu ngesikhatsi lendlu ivalashelwe-ke libandla lelibuke kusebenta kwalelitiko lakhona belitawutfula indlela lelisebentise ngayo imali kulesigaba sekucala semali semnyaka ngemsombuluko.
Ngemuva kokuthi litiko letemtsetfo nemtsetfosisekelo lethule umbiko wokusebentisa imali kulesigaba secala semnyaka, Timphunga bese tiyawushukumisa lo mbiko taveta letinye tetintfo letikhomba kusalela emuva kuleli tiko, kantsi indzaba lihambe phambili ngiloyokuswelakala kwabomanje tinkantolo talapha eveni.
Njengoba lesikhala-ke le post bevele khona le wayithi kucela inike le public service because the post yalo uretire
kulabantwana bemaswati labaningi labafundzele umtsetfo sagcine sesithi sesiyavala vele nokuthi bafunze lo mtsetfo lapha ngoba aba-absorbheki yini bangathathwa labantwana kube ngiyoba bahambe bafakwe bawufundzela le drafting.
Sabona letinye takho lapho kunemagumbi khona kwentela tintfo tetandla ema-workshops sekatshekile sekawile indvuna-ke yasichazela loko kutsi lapha kuye kute nebantu bangaphandle babuye batotfola lusito la bafundzele kushisela bafundzele kutfunga sengafisa-ke kuva kutsi ingabe hulumende uhambe kangakanani kutivusa leto tindvonga ukuze kutsi sive sengwenyama sitochubeka sisitakale.
Litiko, when will they prioritize kwakha tinkantolo? Ngani ngobe nyalo i-industrial court, appeals court isenzaweni lapho kubhadalwa khona i-rent, which is high.
Indvuna yetemtsetfo nemtsetfosisekelo umntfwana Nkosi Simelane inike letinye taletimphendvulo yaveta kutsi letinye tato icela kuyotihlalela phansi ibuye nato setivutsiwe.
babunga nethi kwake kwavakashwa le correctional kuyawubukwa nekuthi ivakashi tenkosi tihleli njani ukhanza sivele qha kuyadumisa kunene kuthi bakhanza kuhle sibili netindvonga lena babukwa ukuthi ingabe kuyawugcine kuthiweni ngoba kuyawugcine kuwele phansi cha kusebikiwe lapha kufanele ekubikwe khona kuma-macro project bunga kona ukuthi tivakashi tiphatheke kahle sibili nje basho nje abekusinkulumo yengwenyama esonfeni amayikhuluma nge-agape love hawu vele kunjalo le nyalo nje sekude nabofenisi ukuthi uhleli ngale lo mnye uhleli ngala cha eniqoqa nje nikhulekile ukuthi kuhle lokho nemhlaba vele uyathumisa.
Indvuna ibese icika ngelivu lelicinile inkohlakalo kanye nekwanze kokucala lapha eveni lathi livele Eswatini liyalidzinga libandla lelitawulwa nenkhohlakalo. Lo bikako ngumpendulo gumbi ananolwazi incamphalala kalobamba.
Nanoma tivakashi lebekatse setingenile lapha eveni eminyakeni lophelile bese tifikile ku-1 million futhi-ke tikhule nga-7.5% ma kucathaniswa umnyaka neminyaka. Kepha libonakele lehla linani letivakashi letichamuka eveni leNingizimu Afrika ngenyanga yeLweti kanye nenyanga yeNkongoni. Lekungilona-ke live liba netivakashi letiningi letingena kuleli naleto letichamuka e-Europe tehlile. Kanzi-ke uma ikhuluma e-Happy Valley ezulwini ngesikhathi libandla letekuvakasha lihlangene nebetindzaba netindzawo-ke tekungcebeleka indvuna yetekuvakasha umhlonishwa Jane Mkhonda ithi kufanele tihlale njalo ngekuthuthukiswa tinhlelo tekuvakasha-ke njengoba indlela kanye netimo sivele sesiphila ngayo iyashintsha.
Indvuna yithi emava kaSADC solwa yachubeka nekuthi abe netivakashi letiningi letita kuleli njengoba leto letichamuka kulamave tenda lokungu 88% kuya ku 92% wetivakashi letingena lapha eveni. Uthi lokhu kukhomba kwekuthi kumcokwa kwekuthi kube nendlela yekusebenzisana nalamave kutfutfukisa tekuvakasha.
The South African development community remains the primary source of our tourism flows, contributing approximately 88 to 92% of arrivals, thereby underscoring the strategic importance of regional integration and cooperation.
Umhlonishwa asachubeka uvetile ukuthi labakutfola ukuthi solo tivakasha tidlala isikhathi lesitse kuleli kanzi nemali letiyisebenzisako tiselapha eveni ayisiyo legculisako kahle kanti lokhu kusho ukuthi kufanele kuchubekwe nekucinisa tinhlelo tekukhanga tivakashi. Ukhutsata betindzawo tekungcebeleka ukuthi bete netindlela letinsha letitawukwenta kwekuthi tivakashi tichitse isikhathi lesitse kuleli. Umhlonishwa uthi litiko lilungele ngalokuphelele kwesekela libandla letekuvakasha kutfutfukisa tinhlelo talo. Umphathi welibandla letekuvakasha Vusi Dlamini uthi babite betindzawo tekungcebeleka nabo bonke labatsindzekako ngobe bafise kushiyelana lwati kwekuthi tekuvakasha tingatfutfukiswa kanjani futhi masinyane.
Lokukuthata kakhulu ke ukuthi noma sibuka ukuthi yona i-sector ye-tourism i-contribute kangakanani noma ifaka lokunganani emnothweni welive, nalapho siyabona ukuthi cishe kuyajabulisa ngobe sesihlelile kubo 1.1 billion compared to i-target lebekiwe ya 2 billion. Noma siwenda umsebenzi wethu kuba khona tingcinamba lesiba nato lesikubonako ukuthi masibuka imakethe yethu ikakhulukati yase-South Africa sibonile ukuthi ngabo November December cishe yehlile. Lokwehla ke kwenda kwekuthi tinombolo tethu njengoba i-South Africa kungiyona makethe yethu lenkulu nakwehle yona kwenda ukuthi tinombolo tethu bese tibukeka tiyehla. Kepha lokho sikhutsatako futhi ukuthi nasibuka iMozambique cishe ikhulile.
Umphathi welibandla letekuvakasha uthi basendala ucwaningo kwekuthi yini leyende ukuthi eminyakeni lophelile lehle linani letivakashi letichamuka eveni leNingizimu Afrika ikakhulu ngenyanga yeLweti neyeNgongoni. Uthi basacwaninga futhi nekuthi yini leyende tehle tivakashi letichamuka emaveni labamhlophe. Lubikako nguNelswendla ngamandla nginavuma inkosi inzinisa ezulwini.
Mapalane wenhlangano yemidlalo wecricket kuleli uthi ke lelikhethelo litimisele kuphakamisa umjeka welive ngekuthi lingenele indzebe yemhlaba ye-T20 cricket. Dlamini ukusho lokhu ekubeni bafike eveni leGhana lakhona bangenele khona imidlalo yekuhlungela lendzebe.
Lelikhethelo libukeke kuyongenela indzebe yemhlaba kwekucala emlandweni kanti ke kude ke lithola ithikithi indlela ecala khona eGhana lapho bayongenela khona isigamu sekucala sekuhlungela lo mdlalo. Lelikhethelo lakuleli lingaphansi kwa Group B. Mapalane wenhlangano yalomdlalo wecricket kuleli Mandla Dlamini lobuke lelicembu lokuliseseGhana uyachaza kabanti ngale midlalo.
Sihambe kahle sifike kahle emeni laseGhana lapho khona participate ku-ICC Men's T20 World Cup Sub-Regional Africa Qualifier B lapho sobe siphuzele khona emavela lamanye lasihlanu leku iGhana, St Helena, iSeychelles, Malawi neTanzania. Kumdlalo nakubheke ukuthi longenani sizame ukuthi siwine ibe mnyenti sizokhona ukuthi siqualify ukuthi siyocompete with the other countries la adlala ku Group A na Group C ku-Africa final ungapheli umnyaka lona. Silibele Eswatini siqeqeshile ngaloku fanele ukuthi sikhone ukudlala kahle lemidlalo le.
Captain walo likhethelo Eric Phiri uthi bayilungele le midlalo.
Thembisa ukuthi sidawudlala ngikudimisela nokusedu si-performe kahle siwine sitawukhona ku-qualifier sichubekele the next stage of which start sesi-compete nalabo lamanye ama-groups before sichubekele embili sigcina sirepresenta i-Africa yonkana the international qualifiers.
Lelikhethelo litodlala imidlalo lesihlanu kanti umdlalo walo wekucala ungalesibili ntambama lapho litocala khona nelive le-St Helena kanti wekugcina ungelisonto ne-Seychelles. Lobekela umsakazo weSwatini TV kutemidlalo ngiphathizwe Msibi eMbabane.
Qeqeshwe umdlalo we-beach volleyball kuleli Dennis Lukhele uthi lo mdlalo ukhomba ukukhula ngelizinga lelisetulu njengaloku-ke bantu sebacala ukucondzisisa kangcono. Lukhele uthi kule ndlela lokukhula ngawo lo mdlalo sebafisa nekusungula indlebe ye-league. Lebekakhuluma-ke uma kudlala lo mdlalo uthi lokuyinkinga kwanyalo ngiko kubade tindzawo tekudlalela lo mdlalo letanele. Asibahloleni yetimakethe ngekwephetsana tindzaba tetfu teSwati sitawubuya sixoxisane na Chief Executive we-Eswatini Tourism Authority Vusi Norman Dlamini.
To all the viewers of Eswatini TV in the kingdom and beyond. Eswatini TV is regulated by the Eswatini Communications Commission through the Broadcasting Code and Broadcasting Guidelines. Under these instruments, the station commits to broadcasting information and news that have been fact-checked, programs and content in respectful language with no elements of hate speech, violence or sexual activity. If you hear any unsuitable content on this channel, you have a right to voice your complaints with the station management. Should you not be satisfied with the response or action taken, you can escalate your matter to the Communications Commission at PO Box 7811 Babani. Call 2406 7000 or send an email to info@esccom.org.sz. For more information, visit www.esccom.org.sz.
Kude lesinye isikhathi ngaphandle kwalesi.
Aba research bafunze.
Being risky means ukuthi nalokuwa kwayo kulula.
Nathi kufuna sende ukukhiqiza lokuthembile.
When you choose your adventures, you do so with an open heart and a desire for the unexpected. You embark on journeys to discover new worlds, full of wonder. You choose a path to awaken your senses, a world to make you look up and realize just how inspiring this life can be. Arrive and awaken your heart. Explore life in ways only thought possible in your dreams. Discover just how far you go to expand your understanding of life's greatest mysteries. There's just one place on this planet with so much to offer. Now is the time for you to have the royal experience.
Ngime inkosi nyana. Khosapsi bakho Dlambule.
Hey!
Kutawudzingeka.
Ungathi imphendulo ikhona la. Ulamandi.
Bakhetha kungemuka inkosatana yami. Umjabulani wami nawe uyavuma abancane yalokho.
gadla ditsibe
amaswati lokhu ala nyimpi ndawanyika
bahlupheka kakhulu baphilisa kwetinqwayela nganangizwini vumelanani nisale kuhlangana kutokhona ukuthi kubhekane nanasi yesikhwama
akayithathe akahambe nayo
Labo basebuhlungwini abakhohlwe mtotonke le tinto temhlaba.
Those that are in pain must forget all the problems
Ngoba
they have.
kuthi answer la kule tinto temhlaba.
Because the things of the earth have got no answer.
Answer la ikhona khona.
But the answer that we have
Ikulona losetule emazulwini.
is all morning.
Nangishumayela nini ngisuke ngidishumayela kwananami.
When I'm preaching here, I'm preaching to
I
myself.
receive umoya longcwele.
I receive the Holy Spirit.
I declare ukuthi a turnaround is coming my way.
Memethela ukuthi a turnaround is coming in my life.
akayithathe akahambe nayo
Hi, I'm Alex. Here's a riddle for you. What can you own but never hold? Let me show you. Welcome to cyberspace, home to a lot of the things that we use in our daily lives. Games, videos, and so much of our data. But also, here it is, crypto assets. You've probably heard of a few, maybe Bitcoin, Ether, or others. So what am I driving at here? After the global financial crisis, trust in banks was at an all-time low. Crypto assets were created as an alternative way to make payments, democratizing and decentralizing finance. Basically taking power away from banks and putting it in the hands of the people. The idea was that they were going to fundamentally change the world of finance with their decentralized ledger technology, the blockchain. So, what's the catch? Without backing assets or a central authority, crypto assets seem to be really volatile. That's great if you want to gamble, not so great if you want to pay for something. Because how can you really pay for something with an asset that isn't a stable store of value? Enter the stablecoin, a crypto asset built on the blockchain, but usually with a centralized issuer. While the value of crypto assets like Bitcoin is determined by supply and demand, stablecoins aim to have value by being pegged to another asset in one of two ways. The first is by backing the stablecoin with another asset, like the dollar, the euro, or even a commodity like gold. In theory, keeping a one-to-one parity. But wait a minute, doesn't this go against the founding premise of crypto? Maybe, but it also allows users to stay in the crypto universe without all the volatility. The second way stablecoins try to maintain value is through an algorithm, a formula that automatically raises and lowers the total number of a given asset in response to supply and demand to keep the price at or near par. One danger with stablecoins is market shocks. If prices begin to fall too quickly, or users lose faith in the ability of the stablecoin to keep its desired pace, everyone could try to sell their stablecoins all at once, dropping their value almost overnight. There are a few famous examples of stablecoins that have crashed over the years. Some people lost all their savings after relying on something they believed had a fixed value. So, is this the end of the stablecoin story? We can't really be sure. Some still see the promise. They think that stablecoins have the potential to increase access to financial services and become a viable payment method. But for that to happen, there needs to be regulation to prevent fraud and crashes and to protect users from abuse. Before imposing regulation, authorities will look at how people are actually using stablecoins, whether it's for payments or something else. Some authorities are looking to regulate the bigger stablecoins the way they do banks and other traditional financial institutions. Now, here's the real riddle. If these stablecoins are regulated like banks, don't they end up becoming the banks that crypto assets were meant to replace?
All right, welcome back. We did promise that we are going to speak to Vusi Norman Dlamini, the Chief Executive of the Eswatini Tourism Authority. Of course, there is a quiet tension in Eswatini's tourism story that is happening right now. On one hand, the numbers are encouraging, a 16.3% rise in international arrivals in February 2026, and that is, of course, translating to over 84,000 visitors, signaling renewed confidence in travel and a region that is moving again. Africa, particularly the SADC region, continues to anchor that growth. But beneath that momentum, there are early warning signs. Traditional markets such as South Africa and Europe are softening. And in a sector where consistency always matters just as much as growth matters, that shift cannot be ignored. The Eswatini Tourism Authority is now stepping in, yes, to celebrate the numbers, but also to interrogate these numbers and to bring industry players into one room and ask a fundamental question. How do we protect this growth? How do we deepen it? And how do we convert arrivals into longer stays and greater economic value? In tourism, we know that it is always about, who comes in, but not always, but how much they stay, how long do they stay, how much do they experience wherever they visited, and whether they come back. This morning, we're joined by Vusi Norman Dlamini, the Chief Executive. He's going to help us unpack what these numbers really mean and, more importantly, what happens next. Thank you for your time, Ngosi, and welcome to the program. Good morning indeed. Let us begin maybe by the headline number, 16.3% increase in international arrivals. At a strategic level, maybe, what is the real story behind this growth, and what is driving this momentum?
Thank you very much, Mr. Nimalo, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to the tourism sector in the country. I think first of all, yes, we have seen quite some good increase, particularly in the month of February, the month we're coming from, but also when we are looking at it, it's a momentum that we are seeing building from the previous year, which is 2025, where we have seen that our numbers, international tourist arrivals, have passed the 1 million mark. For us, it also demonstrates to a very large extent a resilience of our market or of the sector. But I think having said that, the most important thing I need to say, like you have said in your introduction, is that ordinarily in tourism, you're dealing with quite a fluid sector where things are changing time and again. So whilst we may say that we are celebrating the numbers in February, but the reality of it then is that immediately after that, we know what is happening in Middle East, which then may probably mean then our numbers for the month coming are likely going to be affected, which means from a strategic point of view, as a country, we need to find other means to see how we can actually strengthen and ensure that we keep the momentum of the numbers coming through. Your question is, what is it that drives these? And I think the most important thing is that we continue to target particularly those markets that we see that are actually closer home, the regional travelers coming into the country. I think for us, it's what would be very critical, particularly seeing the volatility of what exactly is happening across the world, which affects to a very large extent tourism, Mr. Norman.
Yeah, and of course, when we sort of look beneath the surface, there is a clear imbalance. Of course, a strong regional performance that is in our region, of course, but perhaps a declining one when we look at Europe and the Americas, right? What does that inform you as the authority about our positioning in the global markets, in the tourism market, in the global tourism market, rather?
Well, that is an indication, because if you look at most of how our tourists are traveling, coming particularly from Europe and Americas and all other countries across, particularly Europe, which basically is our major international market outside of South Africa and Mozambique, which I would call mainly our regional market. You will know that the hub for people traveling to our region, which is the southern region, ordinarily people will connect via Middle East, particularly Dubai. Now, that situation is what it is as we can see it these days, and it is very difficult for people to then travel from wherever through Dubai to come down to southern Africa. That then means, like I've mentioned, we need to really strengthen our partnerships within Africa. We talk of possibility of intra-Africa travel, where we want to encourage the continent to travel within itself. So that is what we really believe that we need to focus on. But probably we may not necessarily need to rush into entire Africa. But what we have noted in terms of our numbers as we do our research is, as yesterday we're presenting our annual statistics, we have actually seen some emerging markets, like I'm saying, outside of South Africa. South Africa is the major one, but we are seeing the decline, even though they are the biggest market for us. So that says to us we need to target the emerging markets. We have seen other countries like Malawi, we have seen countries like Lesotho. We also appreciate, for instance, that Zambia, the Eswatini Air, for instance, as an example, is going to be flying to Zambia. That for us then presents an opportunity to see how we can position the country as a destination in those countries.
Now, so you did mention that South Africa and Mozambique, particularly, they remain critical markets for Eswatini. But, seeing the numbers now in this new report that, there seems to be early signs signaling a slowdown there in South Africa. What are those early signs that signal that slowdown in South Africa? And perhaps, how concerned are you from a policy and strategy point of view?
Obviously, it is a concern because South Africa, like you've mentioned, is our major source market. Most people also, as they travel from wherever, even if it's in the African continent, they will land in South Africa and then they fly into, or they travel into Eswatini. So what is positive, though, that I actually would want to highlight, that even though the numbers in South Africa coming into Eswatini have actually seen a decline, particularly if we're looking back into our annual report in the month of November, December, we've seen a decline. The positive is that if we're looking at the people arriving into South Africa has actually recorded quite a big increase. That then means, as a country, we need to strategically find a way to see how we can entice those people traveling into South Africa to not just travel into South Africa, but also come to the Kingdom of Eswatini. Now, here's the other side of it, Mr. Ngumalo. It is that, like we are saying in this conversation, Mozambique is also another market for us, and it's the second biggest market in the region because of the proximity. The one thing that we appreciate is that we are seeing quite a good increase of Mozambicans coming into the country, though they come into the country for much shorter time. But what we appreciate most is that when Mozambicans come or visit our kingdom, they tend to spend a little bit more than the people that will be coming from South Africa. That then for us means we need to strengthen our relationship with Mozambique and ensure that we promote the destination innovation a bit more in Mozambique to encourage more Mozambicans to coming into the country. And we do believe that that is actually going to contribute a bit more to our not just in terms of visitor numbers, but it will contribute quite more in terms of our gross domestic product, which, if you remember, is contributing 2 billion to the country's economy. So that is what we are looking into. I think just last week we were hosting the Triland Initiative, and one of the key partner in this is Mozambique, and we want to strengthen that platform so that we can see more Mozambicans coming through the country, but only not targeting them. But we do believe that we need to look into the other markets, particularly within the region.
I mean, the conversation around value versus volume is quite critical, and I think what's important from that submission that you're making is that there is that conversation around recalibrating towards competitive traveling packages, but also higher spend and longer stays in Eswatini. As you mentioned, Mozambicans come to Eswatini, but they're here for a very short while. I wonder what kind of strategies you then want to deploy as means to make sure that people stay longer. Is that a conversation that is further into being had?
Yeah, that's a big conversation. Our strategic objectives are very clear. That we are targeting to have at least our travelers visit when they come to the country to spend not less than 4 days. At the moment, what we are seeing is that it's about 1.95, which is just slightly below 2 days, and we would love to see that number to actually increase, because we obviously know that the more days they spend in the country, the more money they are also likely going to spend, because the more nights basically they spend, they are likely going to be spending more. But the big question is, it's very critical for us to look into what exactly they are going to be doing whilst they are in the country. That is the most important. That then speaks to us developing a bit more products as a country to ensure that as the people are in the country, they actually do have more places to visit. It shouldn't just be that they are coming to the country for events. It should be, if they are coming for the country, if I'm making an example, so if we look at Mozambicans as a market, what we are seeing is that there's quite a number of them that we are classifying into educational tourism. We've got some schools in the country that we are seeing Mozambicans starting to actually bring their children into the country. So that then means, if, for instance, you have brought your son into the country to study in one of the schools, you're likely going to visit the country time and again just to check how things are with your son. Now, that for us is an opportunity to target that you and ensure that as you are in the country, you are not just coming in to check whosoever is your relative in terms of what we are calling educational tourism, but we are also giving you more so that when you are in the country, you are actually visiting a little bit more. That speaks to us developing a bit more our products so that we encourage people to spend a little bit more time. I think the other key strategic thing that we want to talk into is to create the linkages between those that are organizing events as well as the establishments. I think the accommodation establishments, oftentimes you find that if there is an event that is happening in the country, especially those events that are not very popular at the moment, you'll find that some establishments are not even aware of those events. So it is important that we create those linkages so that when people come for those, when they come to these establishments, they also are aware that there are actually some events that are happening in the country. That would then encourage them to actually spend a little bit more time in the country. I think when you're talking about issues of value, that is very critical. It's not about the number of tourists that we are inviting or encouraging to come or visit the country. It is about how much they contribute to the fiscus, and that is why it is important that we target also a bit more those that are likely going to not just spend more time in the country, but spend a little bit more. I mean, we know that people do play things like social golf. We want to encourage that as well. I think when we're hosting the Triland Initiative, one of the things that we tried to show them was how much we can offer from a golfing perspective. And we know that golf is what we are calling a low mobility activity, because you spend quite a lot of time playing golf. That then means we are likely going to want to spend one more night, maybe 2 nights, if you want to spend or play golf in a few golf courses. So those are the things that we want to tap into and see how we can encourage more people and more spend in the country.
Yeah, 100%. And, on that session on value, there is a growing conversation, particularly for people around the space of culture, that a lot of the tourists, especially the ones from the Americas and Europe, when they come to Eswatini, they sort of celebrate just how cheap our cultural products are. That is your regalia, your mhelwane, your sakila. I wonder if it should be a conversation to say we should review how we price these items, particularly for people that are not from here. I believe there would be great value for the traders there. But on the conversation of an increasingly growing competitive regional market, what would you say is our true differentiator as Eswatini, and how are we communicating that differentiation into the rest of the region and the rest of the world?
Yes, so I think the biggest differentiator, if you already highlighted one of the key, I think it is our cultural heritage. It is also our peace and tranquility, our beautiful scenery. I mean, we if you've been to a few countries, I mean, you come to the Kingdom of Eswatini, and first of all, when you cross through into our borders, you can actually feel the relief in terms of peace and everything. And then you are also encouraged by the scenery, the beauty of our kingdom. I think that's one very key. But our cultural heritage as well is one of the things that would encourage people, or do encourage people, to come to the country. The surveys that we do actually do indicate that when people come to the country, they do come to the country because they believe that they want to experience our culture as a country. We very much appreciate that is led at the highest level in the country in terms of the events that we have. People attend in big numbers the different cultural events. Umhlanga, Ingwala, Nyalo, we are coming from the Bukano ceremonies. And these are some of the ceremonies that people come, they want to experience. But these are just mere events, and these are important events for the country. What we have noted in terms of our research is that our tourists also, as they come through the country coming from abroad, because we've promoted or we've packaged ourselves as a culturally rich country, they expect that even outside of events, they want to come into the country and actually see how we live as a Maswati. And what we are seeing is that they are not just coming through the country to see those events, they want to see how a Maswati live. These are particularly the Europeans. When they come into the country, they want to visit the communities to see how a Maswati live. In fact, it's been a concern if you look at it, because when they arrive and they are within town, they would be expecting that they would find people like myself and yourself maybe in our traditional regalia, but hardly you'll find that they see that. So as part of our strategy, that's what we also want to try and encourage, and see that if establishments could encourage the use of our traditional regalias for some days, so that the people can see the beauty of our dress code and other things. I think we're talking about the issue of pricing. I think we don't need to be apologetic as a country, and particularly as we sell what we believe people want to buy. I think we do need to review, like you say, the issue of the prices in relation to our traditional regalia.
Yeah, 100%, and I agree with you. And I mean, to my confidence and your confidence, I know that you are normally in your traditional regalia, much like myself. Very rarely are we in neckties and shirts and suits. And so I think we are leading by example in that front. And certainly, if more people got into that, just based off the compliments that we receive from people from outside of Eswatini, even online when we post our photos, you can really tell that people really love it. And indeed, and I think, to that last submission that you are making, we have great case studies, and it's good that we have social media. A certain vlogger was in Eswatini, and they were just commending Eswatini for the way that we are kind, even though we do not promote people being negligent. But some made a case study of someone who left their car on at the Gables in Eswatini and went to a certain shop, and they were saying, in my country, you can never do that, because by the time you come back, that car would be gone. And another vlogger said, the cops stopped me in Eswatini, but they were very kind to me. It was quite refreshing. So I'm just really saying everything that you are saying from the cultural point of view and peace and tranquility. Indeed, we do have beautiful case studies online from some of our tourists. Vusi Nomen Dlamini, Chief Executive of the Eswatini Tourism Authority, Sustaining Tourism Growth, has been our conversation. We'll go for a net break now. We have our news in English after the break.
Those that
are in pain must forget all the problems they have. Because the things of the earth have got no answer. But the answer that we have is all morning. When I'm preaching here, I'm preaching to myself. I receive the Holy Spirit.
I declare a turnaround is coming my way.
Turnaround is coming in my life.
Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. Our English news now. His Majesty King Eswatini III says development is not an inheritance, but a journey starting from humble beginnings. His Majesty said this during the official opening of Hlane Hotel, whereby the King also performed a sword-cutting ceremony for a construction of a shopping mall and a gas station.
His Majesty King Mswati III, upon arrival at the hotel, was welcomed by the management. This event was also graced by Her Majesty the Queen Mother. Also present were a Makosigati to His Majesty, the royal family, the Prime Minister, cabinet ministers, and as well as a royal councils. A few years back, His Majesty King Mswati III declared the initiative of developing Hlane into a town. The fruits of the initiative are starting to yield now, with a number of projects being developed. His Majesty King Mswati III visited one of the projects, which is the Hlane Hotel constructed by the Inyati Group Holdings. The hotel is expected to accommodate more than 100 guests. This project costs between 150 million emalangeni and 200 million. The hotel is strategically placed closer to the airport and the royal residence, where the second leg of the Bukanu ceremony, which attracts a lot of tourists from around the world, take place annually. The king toured the structure and was shown what the hotel entails within the rooms. The hotel upholds to the country's first world status vision and also contributes in the tourism aspect as one of the drivers of the economy in the kingdom. The structure has 42 rooms and a conference center to accommodate about 100 people. His Majesty also visited a site where a construction of a shopping complex and a gas station will take place just closer to the Hlane Hotel. His Royal Highness Prince Mqwasho had an opportunity to explain thoroughly about the project. The complex will have shops, eateries, and a parking lot and a golf course, just to name a few. The king and Ngwenyama performed a sword-cutting function on the site of about 7,200 square meters. Addressing the gathering, His Majesty King Mswati III said it is very important that when the king speaks and gives out a directive, everyone is expected to listen carefully and make sure they follow the instruction.
Indzawo development vele usuka endzaweni lenganalutho lengakadevelopi ngoba na udevelopa akusiko kudevelopa kufike uthi awu ngitholele sengendelwa ubabe mkhulu bese uthi i-development leyo ngoba lokho kuyinto lo inheriti kepha nabo ususa i-development phansi uyisuse nje ukuthi beka ulihlanze la njoba lapha nje umsebenzi webugano sive lesibonakele sitile kuto usebenza kuto usekela lo mkhosi bese sikhulu kabi bantu labanyenti kufika la esigodlweni bekuthatha leqi kubonakale ukuthi labanye nje bebangibekela bathi hey i-traffic beyisuka le kuyashiwa ukuthi i-traffic beyithatha lapha kuda lapha kubo 3 hours kusuka nje kuda la esigodlweni uyabona ke ukuthi ke lokho kuyinkhomba ukuthi live liyakhula.
His Majesty also declared that every Liswati has a role to play and contribute to the development of Hlane and surroundings.
Umsebenzi ujabulise kakhulu muhle kakhulu sithumisa lonke lelibandla lelisebenzile lapha futhi lisebenta ngemoya lomuhle wekubambisana nangemoya ukuthi konke lesikwendako nasingemaswati nakungathi yonke le profit isherishwe lapha Eswatini njengoba nesive lebesebenta lapha besivele sicashwe khona lapha emimangweni khona la elibonjeni ukuthi ngisona lesitawusebenta lapha futhi nekuya embili kubuketwe kona leso sigaba leso kubonakale ukuthi kuyabanjiswana kuthi ke awu nemisebenzi la ngekhathi nje bangibikele ukuthi konke lesingathi ngu90% lokusebentile kuvele kwakhiwe la Eswatini akukalandwa ngaphandle ebekunene.
His Majesty also gave a name to the hotel.
Njoba lo msebenzi umkhulu benyathi group baqelile ke ukuthi lo msebenzi wonke ufaka ekhathi kungasasilo lelo hotela nalamanye lalamanye imisebenzi lesetawufika bacela ligama ke nini bekunene kusho ukuthi leligama ngibuke njoba nembala nakutalwa umntwana lomusha uvele bese uphiwa ligama latakwati ukuthi ke so awusale asebenta ngalo lendzawo nini bekunene ukuthi ke lapha njengoba leli hotela lelihle linjena ukuthi ke ngibuke ligama ngabona ukuthi cha ligama lengidala lipha lona leli hotela kutaba iSultani property hotel bekunene.
The Right Honorable Prime Minister, His Excellency Russell Miso Dlamini, revealed that as His Majesty's government, they carefully understand the First World Status agenda and the Ngwe mandate.
Umbono wankwe kungakosila lamhlanje. Ingwenyama isibekela uqala. Thina singurhulumende ukuthi lokho lekukhulumako kuthi asisebenzele ukuthi sifike ku first world. Sisebenzele ngankwe ku-possible ngoba akusisikhathi singakanani wena waphakathi lo msebenzi bokuqala kungathi angeke uphele lamhla sawuphelile.
Speaking on behalf of Inyati Group, Thokozani Nkambule revealed that through these projects, they have been able to employ eMaswati direct and indirect.
Utsinze timpilo incumbi lokufaka ekhathi bantfu bakulendzawo lababe employed la siqashe close to 1,000 people, labanye direct, labanye from subcontractors.
After blessing and officially opening the hotel, His Majesty declared the official opening of the ICC next month at Eswatini. The King also affirmed means of gathering more funds of constructing more hotels in the kingdom. On the news, I'm Polile Mazia with Tabiso Dlamini at Hlane.
The Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, Mwanenkosi Simelane, has presented the ministry's first quarter performance report. The minister emphasized the country's commitment to upholding human rights, stating that this is a crucial aspect of its international obligations, and this includes those outlined by the United Nations and the African Union. These organizations promote the protection of human rights globally. The minister highlighted the ministry's achievements as well as some of the challenges, which include efforts to ensure that all eMaswati, including vulnerable groups, can access justice. He also discussed ongoing initiatives to improve the country's legal framework.
Bills leseswendile sakhumbula illegal aid bill seyivele seyabakhona lelapha kubukwe ukuthi kusakale sive kutemthetho nakhona kwedlulele khona ekumelelekeni siphinze njalo sibe nawo umthetho ilo reform lesendlula etindlini totimbili teParliament lapha kawubukwa khona imithetho njengoba semdzala kangaka ihlungwe kube njeya yona ke seyaba kangwane.
The minister announces that the legal aid bill is now operational, providing representation to the less privileged in justice matters, with 154 people already benefited from it in cases related to land disputes, family matters, and more. The minister also reports that law reform efforts are still in progress, including the development of a law on rights and a leadership code of conduct for all eMaswati. The law reform has been approved by both houses of parliament and is currently under the review of Labadzala. The minister expresses optimism about the ministry's effort to improve access to justice for all eMaswati, emphasizing the importance of protecting human rights and promoting transparency in governance.
Have commended the good work that is done by the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, while also urging the ministry to do more to improve its standing globally. Now, this comes as Parliament resumes its session to review the ministry's performance, where it presented their first quarter financial report. The senators questioned the ministry's handling of certain issues, which includes the backlog of cases.
The Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs has submitted its first quarter financial report to the House of Senate, where senators raised concerns about several issues, including the hiring of magistrates and law students.
The post be very corner. Why it's not in public service because the post yellow or retired.
bemaswati labaningi labafundzele umtsetfo sagcine sesithi sesiyavala vele nokuthi bafunze lo mtsetfo lapha ngoba aba-absorbheki yini bangathathwa labantwana kube ngiyoba bahambe bafakwe bawufundzela le drafting.
Sabona letinye takho lapho kunemagumbi khona kwentela tintfo tetandla ema-workshops sekatshekile sekawile indvuna-ke yasichazela loko kutsi lapha kuye kute nebantu bangaphandle babuye batotfola lusito la bafundzele kushisela bafundzele kutfunga sengafisa-ke kuva kutsi ingabe hulumende uhambe kangakanani kuti vusa leto tindvonga ukuze kutsi sive sengwenyama sitochubeka sisitakale.
Litiko, when will they prioritize kwakha tinkantolo? Ngani ngobe nyalo i-industrial court, appeals court, isenzaweni lapho kubhadalwa khona i-rent, which is high.
The Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, Princess Melane, gave some responses and promised to provide more in the next encounter, saying some matters are still under review.
Babunga nethi kwake kwavakashwa le e-correctional kuyawubukwa nekuthi ivakashi tengosi tihleli njani ukhanza sivele cha uyadumisa kunene ukuthi bakhanza kuhle sibili netindvonga lena babukwa ukuthi ingabe kuyawugcina ekuthiweni ngoba kuyawugcine kuwele phansi cha kusebikiwe lapha kufanele ekubikwe khona kubo macro project bunga kone ukuthi tivakashi tiphatheke kahle sibili nje basho nje abekusinkulumo yengwenyama esonfeni amayikhuluma agape love vele kunjalo le nyalo nje sekude nabo fenisi ukuthi uhleli ngale lo uhleli ngala cha eniqoqa nje nikhulekile ukuthi kuhle lokho nemhlaba vele uyathumisa.
In his preamble report, the minister strongly condemned the corruption and the rise of crime rate in the country, saying Eswatini needs a commission for further investigations. Reporting, Mpendulo Kumbi with Nolwazi Ngampalala in Lobamba.
The country's tourism sector is experiencing strong growth, but there are warning signs that are emerging as key markets such as South Africa and Europe show a decline. Now, in response, the Eswatini Tourism Authority is stepping in, bringing together industry leaders, and that includes accommodation providers as well as tour operators to reset strategy and to protect this growth momentum. The focus is now on finding practical ways to sustain and strengthen the sector. The Minister for Tourism Authority, Jane Mkonda, has urged the industry to now develop attractive and competitive packages that are going to encourage visitors to stay longer in Eswatini.
Development community remains the primary source of our tourism flows, contributing approximately 88 to 92% of arrivals, thereby underscoring the strategic importance of regional integration and cooperation. At the same time, key performance indicators such as the average length of stay and visitor expenditure remains below optimum levels, highlighting the need for deliberate and targeted policy interventions to enhance value capture within the tourism economy.
Eswatini Tourism Authority's Chief Executive Officer, Vusi Dlamini, says the country is actively enhancing its tourism programs to attract more visitors. He says this effort has prompted a series of meetings with industry stakeholders aimed at exploring new strategies and partnerships to strengthen the sector.
We are seeing an improvement as well in terms of the contribution of the sector in terms of our GDP, the country's GDP, which sits at about 1.13 billion in terms of contribution vis-a-vis the target of 2 billion. On that bit, we are saying that we are very optimistic that we are likely going to meet that target by 2027. We have seen a little bit of a drop, particularly around November, December. I would say it's a significant drop. And this has particularly happened because our major source market, which is South Africa, has actually dropped in that particular period, and we're still investigating in terms of why that could be. We are also seeing some drop in terms of our market coming from Europe, our source market in Europe.
Dlamini also revealed that the authority is investigating last year's decline in tourism from the South African market. He also shared that they are examining the factors behind this drop and applying similar analysis to European markets, where recent figures also show a downward trend. Reporting, Nelson Dlangamandla, Vuminkosi Nzinisa, Ezulwini.
The Stop TB partnership says it is encouraging to see government collaborating with various stakeholders at the forefront of efforts to detect the disease, as well as silicosis, particularly among former mine workers. This was revealed by the Executive Director of the Stop TB partnership, Dr. Lusisa Ditiu. This was during a meeting with the Deputy Chairperson of Eswatini Parliamentary TB Caucus, Sithobela Member of Parliament, Honorable Mangoba Sihlongonyane, as well as Eswatini's Migrant Mine Workers Association Secretary General Vamajele.
Which was attended by the Executive Director of the Stop TB Partnership, was held on the sidelines where she was briefed on the situation faced by Eswatini, who are former mine workers. This meeting comes ahead of a major meeting set to take place on Monday evening here in Cape Town, which will be attended by the Deputy President of South Africa, Honorable Paul Mashatile, as well as the Minister of Health in South Africa, Honorable Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi. Dr. Lusinga Ditiu says the government of Eswatini must work closely with the South African government to ensure that ex-mine workers are paid their compensation swiftly.
I think it's remarkable that the Eswatini government, minister, prime minister, the TB program work very well, or at least try to work hard with vulnerable groups, especially the miners. We observe that too often TB is kind of forgotten or not given the weight that it should, because TB is an airborne disease and it affects all of us. It is to raise the profile or the need for the mining sector and ex-miners to receive their compensation, to kind of re-establish the link, or not re-establish, strengthen the link between the South African government and the Eswatini government. We actually, I hope, that the mining companies understand they can and should do much more for the people that work in the mines. I think there is a lot that is happening. I think it can be much more, and I think we can look at some smart investments and smart thinking between the mining companies, the governments, maybe a bank, in order to increase the funding available for the health.
The Secretary General of the Eswatini Migrant Mine Workers Association, Swamiwa Vamajele, says although some former mine workers have been compensated, there is still a shortfall of 907 individuals who are yet to be paid compensation amounting to 907 million emalangeni.
We also noted that there are legal reforms that need to be addressed, and I'm happy also to say that South African government is working on that, ensuring that there is legal reforms, and as well as looking at how best the compensation schemes can be improved, which is putting compensation schemes together. So those are still ongoing. And secondly, on the other policies that ensures that there is a discussion between two governments, we as a country in Eswatini, we signed the Binational Commission, which was signed by the head of state in 2004. But to date, they hasn't established the binational commissions, which also disadvantage those who are supposed to be medical examined and those that are supposed to be compensated.
The Deputy Chairperson of the Eswatini Parliamentary TB Caucus and Sithobela Member of Parliament, Honorable Mangoba Sihlongonyane, who was with Eswatini Parliament Principal Committee Clerk Impendulo Nkampalala, says Parliament will assist in enacting the necessary laws.
So what we have to assure the nation right now is that we are committed to ensuring that we have those legislative reforms and we have them right on time, so that the entire Eswatini benefit, especially those who have been affected by TB or silicosis, ex-miners. So that's what we are going to do. And lastly, and most important as well, we are going to ensure that where budgetary reforms, where budgetary adjustments have to be effected, we are going to advocate for that so that it also accommodates programs that are there to ensure that we have proper data for ex-miners.
From 2023 to 2025, the South African Department of Health has compensated 2,604 Eswatini former mine workers with an amount of 74 million emalangeni. From 2022 to 2025, the Tiamiso Trust has compensated 1,404 Eswatini former mine workers with an amount of 125 million emalangeni, bringing the total compensation to 199 million emalangeni. Reporting Fortune Dlangamandla, Cape Town.
The competency-based education program is fully underway, and it's aiming to boost the country's economy by equipping students with skills to start their own businesses instead of seeking employment. Dr. Mphiqwa Dlamini from the National Curriculum Center made this statement during a gathering of teachers from various schools at St. Mark's High School.
A convincing number of high school teachers from various schools gathered at St. Mark's High School, where they were being capacitated about the implementation of competency-based education, CPE. They welcomed the government's initiative and are committed to making it work. Dr. Mphiqwa Dlamini, one of the facilitators from the National Curriculum Center, says this initiative will help boost the country's economy in the future.
Why is it important for the teacher to shift, to understand that we are moving from OPE to CPE, and to understand the type of the learner that the country needs now? So when the teachers are aware that we are not just focusing on knowledge retention, but we are focusing on the development of knowledge, functional knowledge, which makes the learner to function outside the classroom, to be resilient, a good citizen who is also competitive at the global stage. And also, apart from that knowledge, which is functional, we're also focusing on the improvement of skills and improvement of values and attitudes. So teachers are very, very receptive, and we are not cognizant of the fact that there are some challenges highlighted by the teachers. While they are receptive, they highlight the issue of numbers in classrooms.
Teachers from different schools outlined some of the challenges they face, including inadequate resources.
Ngileti nombolo na ubukako la khatsa emaklasini ukhanza sileti nombolo vele tiba setulu kanti phela lo hlelo lolu liyadzinga lokuthi umfana ngamunye umbuke likhono lakhe ukuthi ungakuphi so tinombolo nathi setulu kuba nenkinganyana lekhona
labantwana lokufunza kwabo noma ke lengqondo lama levels ayashiyana lo CPE so uzama ukuthi accommodate wonke umntwana weliswati angene kule stream sekufunza naye abambe lokho lakhona ukubamba ngendlela lakhona ngayo.
Ngicela ukuthi going forward asibukele because labo thisha labe sebabancane uma kwanza ama class kufuneka sinale nombolo yabo beyinkulu. Kumbeke lebonye kungaba ngilenza baye yale material. Okay, siyabonga lokuthi ikhona le khona in place la ilungisile uhulumende asa effecta le CPE. But ke uyabuka on the side of labantwana nabo batawutsenga kube ne material lenyeni letawutsenga sombe batali bayitsenge.
The initiative is expected to enhance teaching and learning across the country, and it is continuing in some regions. Reporting Mpendulo Kumbi with Nolwazi Nkampalala in Babane.
Eswatini has embraced the use of the latest technology on weather issues and predicting weather patterns. The world commemorated the World Meteorology Day on Monday, and we have a report on that.
Climate change has brought about change on weather conditions, forcing the use of the latest technology on weather patterns. The director of the Meteorology Department, Tutun Tlengetwa, says the Meteorology Day looks at a broader picture on meteorology issues and addressing those issues, most of them brought about by natural disasters.
This year, the commemoration is going under the theme Observing Today, Protecting Tomorrow. And indeed, we have had observations for a long time, and the observations that were done in the past are what we are using to contribute to protecting today. And we continue to observe today, and the observations we do today do not only influence the work that we are doing now, but they are also going to influence the work to be done by future generations in being able to issue more reliable forecasts and projections that are going to help in planning sustainable development. As we're doing this over the years, we've been changing technologies. A lot has been happening, and technology is contributing as well to the improvement, both of the observations and of the forecasts and projections that we do as Met Services. And we're grateful for the support that we get from various stakeholders and development partners as we do this. And we believe that the more we continue to work together and to take advantage of the support we are getting, we will continue to improve the service both for today and for future generations.
Countries are working hand in hand on information sharing on weather issues. Reporting MKN MCB, Babane.
The Eswatini National Youth Council is refurbishing youth centers for the easy access for the youth. According to the Youth Council Chief Executive Lwazi Mamba, the council is expanding its services countrywide for the easy accessibility by the youth and for the youth.
So what we are going to try to do is we are going to try and operationalize those youth centers. We are targeting to open up again the Mvonjeni Youth Center, the one located Hoho North, and we're also targeting Lomahasha Youth Center. We are also targeting to open Sipofaneni Youth Center. In these centers, the council is looking forward to provide programs such as digital skills training to enhance the skills of young people in terms of the use of computers, mainly to make sure how they harness that skill in as far as business, entrepreneurship is concerned, and harnessing the opportunities that are provided by digital platforms. And we're also looking forward to be bringing together the different young people in those areas and train them on entrepreneurship, on business plan development. And we also want to provide business coaching in collaboration with the Youth Enterprise Revolving Fund and also SEDCO. So we believe that these are the kinds of services that are very, very important when you look into the problem that we are facing as a country, that of youth unemployment.
The CEO says the youth is showing enthusiasm on utilizing the Youth Council services countrywide. He says the introduction of the iHub in towns and cities in partnership with SEDCO is another milestone to be celebrated. Reporting MKN MCB, Manzini.
The Secretary General of the Eswatini Cricket Association, Mandla Dlamini, says they are ready to make the country proud in the T20 Cricket World Cup African qualifiers. Dlamini was speaking after the team arrived in Ghana for the mini tournament.
The national team will be aiming to qualify for the ICC T20 World Cup for the first time in the history of the sport. Their route to the finals begins in Ghana, where they will play the first round of the qualifiers. The team manager, who also is the secretary of the Eswatini Cricket Association, Mandla Dlamini, provided details on the fixtures. He highlighted that the team will compete against 5 countries in Group B. Should they progress, they will face the winners from Group A and C. Dlamini expressed confidence that their preparations will be sufficient for a strong performance in these matches.
ICC Men's T20 World Cup Sub-Regional Africa Qualifier B lapho sobe siphuzele khona emavela lamanye lasihlanu leku iGhana, St Helena, iSeychelles, Malawi neTanzania. Kumdlalo nakubheke ukuthi longenani sizame ukuthi siwine ibe mnyenti sitokhona ukuthi siqualify ukuthi siyocompete with the other countries la adlala ku Group A na Group C ku Africa Final ungapheli umnyaka lona. Silibele Eswatini siqeqeshile ngaloku fanele ukuthi sikhone ukudlala kahle le mdlalo le.
The team captain, Eric Piri, said they are committed to giving their all in order to qualify for the next stage of the competition and ultimately secure a place in the international tournament.
The next stage of which starts to see compete groups before represent Africa in Ghana the international qualifiers.
The team will play their opening match against St. Helena on Tuesday, with their final group match scheduled for Sunday against Seychelles. Reporting for Eswatini TV Sports News, I am Patizo Msebi, Mbabane.
All right, let's go for a break. We have a Bloomberg original when we return.
To all the viewers of Eswatini TV in the kingdom and beyond. Eswatini TV is regulated by the Eswatini Communications Commission through the Broadcasting Code and Broadcasting Guidelines. Under these instruments, the station commits to broadcasting information and news that have been fact-checked, programs and content in respectful language with no elements of hate speech, violence or sexual activity. If you hear any unsuitable content on this channel, you have a right to voice your complaints with the station management. Should you not be satisfied with the response or action taken, you can escalate your matter to the Communications Commission at PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Call 2406 7000 or send an email to info@esccom.org.za. For more information, visit www.esccom.org.za.
In our Bloomberg original today, Dubai has long been considered a safe haven in an often unstable region. But the United States-Israel war with Iran and the Islamic Republic's unprecedented strikes against American allies across the Middle East has put that model to the test. We get the latest news now from Bloomberg about Europe, the Middle East and Africa. Now, let's take a look.
These attacks were unprecedented. We could not have imagined this scenario actually playing out.
Most airports and airlines in the region are affected.
Drone has hit a residential tower overnight in Dubai. It sparked a fire and residents were forced to evacuate the building.
This conflict has come to the doorstep of a territory that many perceived to be one of the world's top safe haven territories.
That perception was by design and helped attract both money and talent. The strikes threaten more than lives and infrastructure. They're testing Dubai's model of stability and the image it wants to project.
Iran's formerly supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead. We've already won in many ways, but we haven't won enough.
Thousands of deaths across the region have been reported in the war begun by the US and Israel. Iran's wave of retaliatory strikes targeted US allies, prompting the UAE to prioritize safety above all else.
Iranian strikes have hit airports, military bases, even data centers.
The UAE has seemingly defied what many assumed would be an existential threat. It's navigated peril before, but with war on its doorstep, can it do it again? Dubai is one of 7 emirates in the UAE. Even as instability has reshaped the surrounding region, the UAE has made itself extremely attractive to foreigners. The city of Dubai was one of 6 founding emirates in 1971, and since then it's transformed from this to this.
Dubai's population is mostly made up of expatriates. You're talking about 90%.
From the UK alone, we've had owners of Premier League sports teams, hedge fund founders, heirs to some of the world's biggest fortunes move to the UAE just in the past year alone.
You can have the beach, you can have the luxury hotel, and you don't have to pay tax.
This influx has led property prices to skyrocket in recent years, particularly in Dubai. Look at London, Hong Kong, Los Angeles, and New York. Now add Dubai, and you get the picture.
Dubai has really become a global financial center. They've made a really big effort to call everyone from the individual billionaires to the hedge funds, to the private equity firms, the Wall Street giants, you name it.
And there's a reason for this.
The UAE leadership is very keen to diversify away from oil.
Instead, it is focused on developing key industries, including tourism, finance, and trade. And so far, the strategy's worked. The income from oil in Dubai's economy is now negligible. And since 2022, the number of hedge funds in Dubai has nearly tripled. The UAE is also making big bets on AI, committing to invest more than $100 billion over the next few years.
The UAE has seen massive investments from the likes of Amazon and Microsoft.
It is in fact a region-wide venture, with over 200 data centers already built or in development. But these have become targets.
AWS warning of prolonged disruptions to its services after drone strikes damaged 3 of its data centers in the Middle East.
One really has to wonder, if we do have a long war ahead, how much appetite there will be for building data centers in a region that is so close to Iran and a destabilizing conflict.
And then you have the tourism industry. Dubai's airport is the world's busiest international hub, and its flagship airline, Emirates, is the world's largest international carrier. Dubai's success attracting people and businesses was bolstered by its image of safe money and safe streets.
You could leave your Birkin bag on the table, walk away, and when you return, it's still there.
In Dubai, there is 0 income tax, 0 national insurance tax.
Hey, aren't you going to take your things?
No.
Why?
It's Dubai.
A big part of Dubai's success as a financial hub is its stability first model.
That means you have the whole infrastructure of everything from finance, your physical security, your medical, everything that you might need to feel secure, to feel safe.
These countries really want to offer something a bit more like Singapore, where maybe personal freedoms are not as plentiful as in the West, but at the same time, they can argue that domestic unrest is kept at a minimum. So it's really about putting stability at the expense of everything else.
Police are extremely vigilant. They have 0 tolerance for all sorts of crime. People feel extremely safe in Dubai. And that's part of the problem that we're seeing right now. I think you live in a place like Dubai, your guard is down. And then all of a sudden, you realize that you are in a region that can see this level of violence.
We've seen a barrage of attacks from Iran to U.S. allies in the Gulf region there.
With conflict ongoing in the region, what of the stability first strategy?
Goldman Sachs and Citigroup said to have told staffers in Dubai to stay away from their offices.
Wall Street banks are offering their employees to relocate temporarily.
There's always been a geopolitical risk for where the UAE is and where Dubai is. What they have managed to do so well is make their domestic market so secure that people feel really secure living there, but they cannot shift where they are in the world.
Geopolitically, they've always been able to hedge and play both sides. There are military bases in the region, but at the same time, they've always had to navigate their proximity to Iran. And there's an almost unspoken agreement that Iran would never really want to attack these hubs because there are Iranian financial interests there too.
Dubai's faced major challenges before, and in many ways, it's capitalized on them.
Most famously, around the time of the 2008 financial crisis, there was a big credit crunch and the property bubble in Dubai burst.
We saw property prices plummet by 50%, 60%, people fleeing. People had a lot of debt and they just left it. And at that time, Dubai wasn't ready to handle that kind of a downturn.
Bloomberg News has learned that Dubai's sovereign wealth fund has quit making investments and it may sell off some of its assets.
In the end, its sort of bigger brother, Abu Dhabi, had to step in and provide financial support for Dubai. It came back stronger, stronger than ever, many would say.
Then a decade later, there was the pandemic.
People stopped coming to Dubai. It really had to think about how it would survive through that time. And it did, to be honest, through being as efficient as possible in opening up its economy as soon as it could.
It also implemented a number of measures to attract global talent, including making it easier for foreigners to obtain long-term golden visas.
Dubai and the UAE have shown themselves to be resilient, even when they've been almost out for the count.
Question is whether it'll be able to do the same this time. And for now, the message from the top at least is one of reassurance.
So the leadership of Dubai, but also the leadership of the UAE, have been keen to show people that it's safe. They've been photographed walking around in malls, they've been interacting with the public. They're basically keen to tell people to go about their lives.
With Iran selecting a new leader who may be unwilling to back down in the face of the US and Israeli bombing campaign, uncertainty prevails.
The Strait of Hormuz has suffered a high level of disruption since this war began.
The Strait of Hormuz is a really important global choke point. It's basically the only waterway from the Persian Gulf into the open ocean. And it's a hugely important trade channel for energy products.
And while Dubai has diversified its economy, it can be affected by supply chains. The immediate impact of the war on other industries in the region may be harder to measure.
It's an incredible region. It's got very significant growth. Those are the types of asset classes and geographies that we want to be investing in long term.
No matter what happens between Iran and the US, there's still going to be a huge drive to do business with long-term, deep pools of capital.
It is all up in the air. People barely know what's going to happen next. But history has shown us that Dubai can adapt very well to a crisis situation.
If I'm in Dubai right now, or if I'm thinking about moving to Dubai, the question I'd be asking myself is, can I be here for the long term?
One of the reasons why Dubai works so well is that it's a haven, not just for business, but also for tax. And that might help answer the question of whether or not Dubai remains an attractive place for them.
All right, we'll go for a quick ad break now, and we'll be back with our international news.
Kude lesinye isikhathi ngaphandle kwalesi.
Aba research bafunze.
Being risky means ukuthi nalokuwa kwayo kulula.
Nathi kufuna senze ukukhicita lokusembili.
Right, at least 10 Palestinians were injured in attacks on the 23rd of March in the occupied West Bank by Israeli settlers. The group rampaged through nearby villages after holding a funeral for an 18-year-old settler that was killed in a car crash the day before. The violence came as Israel's government presses ahead with new settlements in the occupied West Bank.
It was meant to be a time of celebration for Eid al-Fitr. Instead, the holiday weekend was marked by bloodshed and retaliatory arson. The spark was the death of 18-year-old Israeli settler Yehuda Sherman on Saturday. A car collision, the intent of which is still being investigated, triggered a wave of violence across at least 6 Palestinian communities.
There were many, over 90, over 100. The settlers attacked the entire village today. We woke up to buses on fire. My car was parked right there, not yet burned. Every time I poured water on the bus, the fire flared up more. I thought I was doing something wrong.
The Palestinian Red Crescent reports at least 10 people were injured in Sunday night's rampage alone. Homes were pepper sprayed, and in Deir al-Hatab, a 45-year-old man was shot in the foot. Despite the destruction and the threat of further raids as the Israeli government presses forward with new settlement outposts, those in the line of fire say they are staying put.
We are staying here today, tomorrow, and as long as we can. Where would we go? There is no leaving these houses or this village. Praise be to God.
The IDF says it has responded to the arson, but no arrests have been reported. As one teenager is laid to rest, a region remains on a knife edge.
Donald Trump says the United States and Iran had very good and productive talks over the weekend. He also said that the United States would hold off on strikes on Iranian power plants for 5 days, just as his initial 48-hour deadline was coming to an end. But the Iranian news agency says there has been a communication, or rather no communication, between Washington and Tehran.
An abrupt reversal from Donald Trump as his own deadline for Tehran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz was fast approaching. The U.S. president now says he's delaying targeting Iranian energy infrastructure for a 5-day period, following productive conversations to bring the war to an end. Trump didn't specify who Washington was in touch with, and Tehran denies talks are taking place at all. What is certain, however, is Trump changed his tune hours after a statement from the IRGC was carried on state media warning of a tit-for-tat. Tehran threatened to go after power plants in regional countries if its electricity infrastructure was hit. Since the U.S. and Israel began the war, Iran has been lashing out at Israel, striking targets across the Gulf, and closed off the Strait of Hormuz. Cutting the vital waterway has taken the global economy hostage, and efforts from Washington to secure it have backfired. According to a report in Axios, the U.S. president has been mulling taking over Iran's Karg Island to pressure authorities to loosen their grip on Hormuz. The rocky outpost off the coast of Iran is viewed as the crown jewel of its energy infrastructure, and over the weekend, officials in Washington refused to rule it out.
Karg Island, I want to ask you about your statement. You said it could become a U.S. asset. What exactly does that mean? Could U.S. troops go into Karg Island to secure it?
Again, as I said, all options are on the table.
Iran's Defense Council says Tehran would respond to any attack on its coast or islands by laying sea mines in shipping routes across the Gulf. While the Islamic Republic has so far refused to capitulate, the latest move from Donald Trump suggests the U.S. president could be looking for an off-ramp.
The International Energy Agency warned that the United States-Israeli war on Iran could trigger the worst energy crisis the world has ever seen. The warning comes after Iran on the weekend vowed to escalate its attacks on energy infrastructure across the Gulf region, following President Trump's 48-hour ultimatum threatening to obliterate Iran's power infrastructure if Tehran doesn't fully reopen the Strait of Hormuz.
Now, in the fourth week of war in the Middle East, 20% of the world's oil and natural gas remains blocked at the Strait of Hormuz. As U.S. President Donald Trump tries to force the strait open, Iran has threatened to retaliate by targeting energy infrastructure in the Gulf, an escalation that would push oil prices even higher. The International Energy Agency warned that the leaders were not taking into account the gravity of the situation.
Many of us remember the 2 consecutive
oil crisis in 1970s, 1973 and 1979. And at that time, in each of the crises, the world has lost about 5 million barrels per day. Only as of today, we lost 11 million barrels per day.
Since the start of the war, oil prices have skyrocketed from $68 on February 27th to well over $100 per barrel. The price hike is being felt at the pumps worldwide, with many governments instating fuel purchase limits. Here in Croatia, the Minister of Economy called on citizens to not buy more than they need.
We must be aware that we are facing the biggest energy crisis in history. Use those energy sources optimally, rationally. I urge people not to stock up.
Asian countries who are dependent on oil from the Middle East have been especially affected. Facing supply uncertainty, many are holding onto their stockpiles. China has banned fuel exports outright, while Vietnam and Thailand have also restricted fuel sales to other countries. While US and European gasoline cargoes are now being shipped to Asia to bridge the gap.
Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel, along with the United States, will respond with great force after Iran's overnight strikes on the two cities on southern Israel near a highly sensitive Israeli nuclear facility. More than 160 people were injured in an attack that shows Israel's Iron Dome isn't impenetrable.
The day after Iran's strike on the southern city of Dimona, the scale of the damage became clear. One of the most destructive attacks of the three-week war. Now Israel's prime minister is vowing retaliation.
And we're going after them personally, their leaders, their installations, their economic assets. We're going after them very strong.
Dozens were wounded, including children, several of them seriously. Just hours later, another missile hit the neighboring city of Arad.
Yeah, it's scary. This city never experienced something like that actually bombed the city, like straight hit.
Both cities lie near a sensitive nuclear facility. Officially, it's a research center, but it's widely believed to house the Middle East's only nuclear arsenal. The attack shows Iran can still hit across the region, despite claims from Israel and the US that its forces have been severely weakened.
Foreign Minister, is the war that you and America started 3 weeks ago getting out of control?
No, I don't think so, because you must understand that in war when you take a lot of risks, complications. We are successful in achieving our military objectives.
The extensive damage and casualties show once again that Israel's air defenses are not foolproof. The military says it's investigating why the missiles were not intercepted. More than 400 ballistic missiles have been fired since the start of the war. About 92% intercepted, according to the IDF.
Israel continues to bomb Lebanon as it tries to root out Hezbollah, which the president has called a collective punishment. After having destroyed several bridges linking southern Lebanon to the rest of the country, Israeli forces are advancing targeted ground operations as they claim the operation against Hezbollah has only just begun. Meanwhile, the death toll in Lebanon has risen to over 1,000 killed and at least 2,700 wounded.
Where there was once a bridge, now gaping holes. Bent metal and craters are what remain of this key road crossing. It connects southern Lebanon to the rest of the country. By blowing up Lebanese bridges, Israel says it is destroying key routes used by Hezbollah. But Lebanon says that the Israeli strikes are cutting off entire swathes of civilians from food, medical supplies, and routes out to safety. For Lebanon's president, the Israeli strikes are a collective punishment on civilians and a violation of international humanitarian law.
These attacks represent a dangerous escalation and flagrant violation of Lebanon's sovereignty and are considered a prelude to a ground invasion.
Israel says the aim of the strikes is to thwart Hezbollah operations.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and I have ordered the IDF to immediately destroy all bridges over the Litani River that are being used for terrorist activities, in order to prevent Hezbollah terrorists and weapons from moving south.
The Israeli military said that its chief of staff, Eyal Zamir, has approved more plans for targeted ground operations and strikes. In a statement, Zamir also said that the offensive against Hezbollah has only just begun, and that it will be a prolonged one. Israel also said it has ordered troops to speed up the destruction of Lebanese homes near the border. Israel's ground operations began March 16th in southern Lebanon, and since its bombings across the country began in early March, more than 1,000 people have been killed. And nearly 1 million Lebanese, or 1 in 5, have had to flee. Rights groups say the destruction of homes and civilian infrastructure like bridges could amount to Israel committing war crimes in Lebanon.
And that's the home stretch. Thank you for staying with us. This has been Kusile Breakfast Show. We'll see you again tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.